Hey guys, my name is Wu Wei and you can call me Artorius. I born in China, Chengdu, and I came to America, studied for like 4 years in UVM and graduate Vermont, UVM Vermont. So after I graduate, I want to learn anime, and I think Japan is one of the most powerful country for anime production. So that's why I came here in Niigata, JAM. And today we're going to talk about some benefits that JAM can provide for foreign students to actually adopt the life here and study anime and manga in a professional way. Okay, so for the first question, why did you choose JAM, which is Japan Anime Manga College, instead of many other options? The reason here is pretty simple. First, there are a lot of manga authors they were from Niigata. For example, like the author of Death Note, the author of Inuyasha, both anime and manga they are pretty famous and well known over the world. And that's the first reason why I chose here. And the second reason is pretty simple as well, because staffs here are pretty friendly. And when I was studying still in UVM America, I was trying to find a place to learn Japanese anime because I want to start my own studio and my company in the future. I sent out like 30 emails, but none. Well, they do reply, but you can tell they're not very interested in foreign students. For example, schools in Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. Those were my first bet. But then turns out you can pretty much tell from the email saying they are not very experienced for dealing with international students. But JAM is different. Like when I was communicate with staff here, what's the requirement for me to come to Japan and study anime? They are pretty experts. They are experts for telling me what I need, what kind of paperwork, what kind of Japanese language skills I need for coming here, and what kind of communication skills, what kind of financial requirements. And that's been really helpful. And in addition to that, not all the Japanese anime schools they willing to Skype with you to talk about these questions face to face. And John, I know they were like over 3-4 teachers, including the vice president from the school. They were trying to help me out and they trying to explain what JAM is, what kind of program they have to help the international students. And that's the answer to the question one. Thank you. I move on to the second question. What's the life like in Niigata? Well, it's really quiet and people here are pretty friendly. It's completely safe, just like Vermont. Honestly, I've traveled a lot of places in America and I feel like Vermont is the safest state in my mind, and here it's almost the same. People are really polite. Like if you go to the bank, if you go to any service related shops, they are really friendly. Like they have their smiles all the time, and I think that's really fascinating. Things here are relatively cheap compared with life in Tokyo. So I currently live in a apartment in Furumachi, which is being considered as the downtown in Niigata, and it cost me like 3 yen. It's like 3 yen Japanese yen. It's like 30,000 Japanese yen, and it's pretty cheap compared with other places, and that's a huge advantage if you are kind of short in finance and you want to you have some hard situation and if you want to come to Japan, I think JAM is a good bet. And also food here is pretty nice, and they have the best rice so which means you can have the best sake. And there are a lot of famous restaurants. You can find pretty much everything. You can find Mexican food, you can find French food, you can find Italian food, traditional Japanese food, Chinese food, you name it. It's just fantastic here. And moving on to the bad side, the weather here is kind of unpredictable. Sometimes the wind is really strong, to be honest, and the windstorms just come from nowhere, and you have to worry about that a bit if you are not like dealing with a storm, or like you're not good at dealing with storm or that kind of surprise. All right, next question. All right, next question is, what's the benefit or what's the good part of JAM? The good thing here is teachers you can find are really friendly, and they help you with when you move to Japan. Obviously, there are two situations. You either go to the Japanese language school to stay for a year for at least pass Japanese JOPT N3, or if you are really good at Japanese, and you can just pretty much come here, and these teachers will help you find your phone number. You can just open your bank account. They will help you with pretty much everything, like you move in, find a place to live, find a part-time job, for example. And while you study here, we as Japanese as our second language, there are a lot of, well, for me it's a third, but there are a lot of things you might not be able to understand during the lessons, and you can just speak out, ask your teachers. They are more than happy to help, like to explain everything, and I think that's really, really helpful. And there are a lot of events as well. For example, if you, I think it's the second week or the third week, our class actually went to a trip in Myoko, and we pretty much went to the hot springs. It's like an onsen in Japanese, and it was fascinating. You can spend like a night with all these new friends, and it's amazing. Like I bring my like game consoles, so we pretty much had a game night, but it was pretty nice. And there are a lot of other events like your class can just go together to watch a football game, or I mean soccer game. They don't really have American football, but or baseball or any other stuff. You can go to see the sakura together, and that's really, really nice. For a lot of students who graduate from here, I have to say, when I looked at their anime, their graduation projects, their graduate projects, like their anime, their manga, their pictures, or their manga, they are fascinating. They did a really, really good job on those, and sometimes I just feel like if I can be one of them, then I can probably be a pro in anime production. So you can see that the students who graduate from JAM, they are really, really professionals. They can just do whatever they want after like 2 years, 3 years studying here, and that's fascinating. And also, there are a lot of Japanese anime company or game companies come on campus, and to like for like each period of time, they're looking for new recruits. They're looking for well, not majority of the time. Sometimes they come here just to explain, like, oh, we're kind of new here in Niigata, and we just opened up this branch store, branch company, and we're trying to recruit some new dudes, and we're trying to well, yeah, sometimes they're just here for introductions, like they introduce who they are, what they do, and sometimes they actually help with your own work. Like I do some pictures and I bring them in, and the professional staff from the company will point out, oh, for this part you should do what, for that part what kind of improvements you need, and I think that's pretty useful too. All right, move on to the next question. All right, for students who want to, or international students who want to study anime or manga in Japan, what's your advice? Okay, so if you want to study anime or any other subjects in Japan, you have to have a relatively high Japanese language skill. For me, I think N2 is a good bit. And if you don't really understand Japanese, or your Japanese is not good enough, no worries, because when you come to Japan, you are going to study Japanese for a year in a professional Japanese language school, and that's been really helpful for majority of the students. And without a good Japanese skills, you probably won't be able to communicate with the teacher, with the sensei, because when they express what you should do, what kind of way you should draw anime or manga, you probably won't be able to understand. So there's a big chunk, and you probably need to be really good at Japanese. And also, if you don't really understand Japanese, or after 1 year learning in Japanese language school, you still can achieve N2, no worries. At least you need to have a basic skills to understand what's the daily conversation like, so you can, if you don't understand what's the expressions or like the lessons are, you can probably just go ask the other kids or students in your class, because they are friendly, they are willing to tell what kind of ways you should do to improve yourself, or just explaining what the teacher just said. And the second one I think is really important, is that you have to come to class on time, and otherwise you probably will face a lot of trouble renew your visa, and in worst scenario you probably will be sent back to your own country. I got this experience that one kid in my class actually is pretty lack in, well, coming to class, and he got this trouble, and it's been a pain in the ass for like 2 weeks. He's trying to prove that he actually is studying here in JAM, and it took him a long time to overcome this issue to get the this new visa, or his visa to renew, because if you can't prove you have a good record in studying here, you will get serious trouble, trust me. And the third question is, well, the third point is, there's a lot of culture shock, like in Japan, compared with where you originated from. I stayed in America for a few years, and I was originally from China, and there's culture difference in all the places. And for me, the only advice I can give is to take it easily, and I mean, not just ignore them, but there will be culture difference, but just be open mind, like to try to be more patient and kind and respect different ideology. Like for example, it's probably okay to talk to your best friend in bus in America or in China or in other countries, or taking photos. But in Japan, they have really strict rules. You probably won't be able to talk loudly in subway, in bus, or you probably, well, you shouldn't take pictures or photos in bus, because that's been considered, because there's some issue and laws. And for me, I think to respect the difference is really important, and that's the advice for international kids who want to study in Japan. Sorry, I almost said America. And if you're really concerned of studying anime, manga, or just to any anime characters you like, or develop your own manga, or create your own products, you should probably consider this JAM. Just like I said, the staffs here are really friendly. They do help you and guide you through some difficult times, and I think that's pretty nice, and you don't really find from other schools. That's all. Thank you, and I hope you guys had a good time in Japan.